The Grand Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Z. Rixtel of the Veloran hegemony placed the strange device on the central podium. Every representative from the 12 species of the Galactic Union leaned forward in their seats. The device was small, no bigger than a communication pad, but it hummed with an energy that made several delegates uncomfortable. This, Z. Rixtel said, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, was recovered from the debris field near the Terran colony world of New Brisbane. We have had our best scientists study it for 30 standard rotations. They cannot understand how it works. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Galactic Union had existed for over 10,000 years. They had mapped every corner of known space. They had solved the mysteries of faster-than-light travel, gravity manipulation, and even basic matter conversion. The idea that something could exist beyond their understanding seemed impossible. High Minister Cronax of the Septari Collective stood up. His tall, thin body swayed slightly as he spoke. "Ambassador, surely you exaggerate. Our combined scientific knowledge spans millennia. How can one primitive species create something we cannot comprehend?" Zerixtel turned all 4 eyes toward the minister. "I do not exaggerate, High Minister. Perhaps you would like to examine it yourself." Cronax made a gesture of acceptance and floated down to the podium. He extended one of his many tendrils toward the device, then pulled back suddenly. It responded to my proximity. I felt something scan me. "Yes," Zerixtel said. "It does that. We believe it is some form of defensive system, but we cannot determine how it detects approaching objects. It has no sensors that we can identify." The chamber erupted in confused conversation. Representative Malaxi of the Christine Consortium raised her hand for silence. Her body, made of living crystal, caught the light as she moved. "How did we obtain this device? What happened at New Brisbane?" Zerixtel's skin changed color, a sign of discomfort among his species. "That is why I have called this emergency session. 3 cycles ago, a rogue faction within the hegemony decided to test the Terran defenses. They believed the humans were weak, that their technology was primitive. They sent a battle group of 47 warships." And Cronax asked impatiently. "The entire fleet was destroyed in less than 2 standard time units. We recovered this device from the wreckage of our own flagship." The chamber fell into shocked silence. 47 warships represented significant military power. The Veloran hegemony was known throughout the galaxy for their advanced weapons and shields. The idea that a single human colony could destroy such a force so quickly was beyond belief. Elder Zahn of the Tikari Republic slowly rose from his seat. He was the oldest member of the council, having served for nearly 300 years. "I think that we have underestimated these Terrans. They joined the Union only 50 years ago. We accepted them because their homeworld showed promise, but we never paid much attention to their development." "They are barely out of their own solar system," Cronax said dismissively. "They cannot possibly have technology that surpasses ours." "And yet," Elder Zahn replied, 47 of our ships are now scattered debris, and we hold a device we cannot understand. Perhaps our assumptions need to be examined." The council debated for many hours. Some argued that the humans must have found ancient technology from a dead civilization. Others suggested that the Veloran attack group had simply been incompetent. A few even proposed that the humans had made a deal with some unknown power beyond the galactic rim. Finally, it was decided that a diplomatic mission would be sent to Earth, the Terran homeworld. The goal was simple: determine the true level of human technology and understand how they had achieved such rapid advancement. Ambassador Z. Rixtel volunteered to lead the mission. Despite his species being responsible for the attack on New Brisbane, he felt it was his duty to repair the damage. Besides, he was curious. In all his years of diplomatic service, he had never encountered something truly beyond explanation. The journey to Earth took 12 days at maximum faster-than-light speed. During that time, Zrixtal studied everything the Union had on record about the Terrans. The information was sparse and often contradictory. Humans had achieved space flight relatively recently in galactic terms. Their first interstellar ship had launched only 200 years ago. By comparison, the Veloran had been traveling between stars for over 8,000 years. The Septari claimed to have been spacefaring for nearly 20,000. Yet despite their youth, the Terrans had expanded rapidly. They now controlled over 40 colony worlds and had established trading posts in dozens of other systems. Their population had grown from 8 billion on their homeworld to nearly 50 billion across their territory. Most curious of all were the reports about their engineering capabilities. Several Union observers had noted that human technology seemed to evolve at an unusually fast rate. What took other species centuries to develop, humans achieved in decades. No one had paid much attention to these observations at the time. After all, what could a young species possibly achieve that the ancient races had not already mastered? Now, Zrixtal suspected that such thinking had been a mistake. When the diplomatic ship finally dropped out of faster-than-light near Earth, Zrixtal experienced his first true shock. The planet was surrounded by a ring of stations, satellites, and shipyards that defied logical construction. Massive structures floated in perfect formation, connected by beams of energy that his ship's sensors could not identify. "Ambassador," his pilot said, her voice trembling slightly, "there are over 10,000 vessels in Earth orbit. I am detecting energy signatures that do not match any known configuration." Zrixtal moved to the viewing port and stared at the sight before him. He had visited many homeworlds in his career. The Veloran capital was surrounded by defensive platforms. The Septari core world had orbital cities housing billions. None of them compared to what he saw around Earth. "Contact their traffic control," Zrixtal ordered. "We are here on official Union business. Request permission to approach." The communication was established quickly. A human female appeared on their display screen. She had dark skin and hair cut short, and she wore a simple uniform with no visible markings of rank. "Veloran diplomatic vessel, this is Earth Orbital Control. We have been expecting you. Please proceed to Dock 7 of Unity Station. An escort will guide you in." Before Zrixtal could respond, two sleek ships appeared on either side of his vessel. They had not jumped in from elsewhere. They had simply appeared as if from nowhere. Their hulls were smooth and featureless, without any visible weapons or engines. "How did they?" the pilot whispered. Zrixtal had no answer. He simply watched as the escort ships guided them toward the massive station ahead. He had come to Earth seeking answers about human technology. Now, he realized that he might not be ready for what those answers would reveal. The interior of Unity Station was unlike anything Zrixtal had ever seen. The walls seemed to shift and flow, changing color and texture as they walked. Lights appeared where they were needed and faded when no longer required. The floor beneath his feet felt solid, yet he could see through it to the levels below, where thousands of humans went about their daily activities. He was accompanied by his aide, a young Veloran named Trix, and two security officers who seemed increasingly nervous with each step they took. Their guide was a human male named James Chen. He appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with gray hair and lines around his eyes that suggested frequent smiling. He wore the same simple uniform as the traffic controller. "Welcome to Unity Station, Ambassador," James said as they walked. "I apologize for any confusion at the border. We understand there have been tensions." "You mean the attack on New Brisbane," Zrixtal said directly. "I wish to assure you that the action was not sanctioned by the hegemony government. Those responsible have been dealt with." James nodded slowly. "We know. We monitored the trials and subsequent punishments. We appreciate the swift justice." Zrixtal stopped walking. "You monitored our internal proceedings. Those were held on Velora Prime in closed sessions." James smiled, but there was no mockery in the expression. "We like to stay informed, Ambassador. No offense was intended. Please let us continue. The President is waiting." They walked on in silence. Zerixtel noticed that his security officers were having trouble keeping their composure. Everything around them seemed to challenge their understanding of what was possible. They passed through a section where humans were working on what appeared to be engine components. The parts floated in midair, manipulated by hand gestures alone. There were no visible tools, no machinery, nothing that explained how the heavy metal parts stayed suspended. "Gravity manipulation," Trix whispered to Z Rixtel, "but at such a precise level. Our best scientists cannot achieve anything close to this." They entered a large chamber that appeared to be the station's command center. Dozens of humans worked at stations that had no visible controls. They simply waved their hands or spoke quietly, and information appeared in the air before them. In the center of the room stood a woman with white hair and sharp blue eyes. Despite her age, she radiated strength and authority. She wore no special clothing to mark her status, but everyone in the room clearly deferred to her. "Ambassador Z. Rixtel," she said, her voice warm despite the formality. "I am President Maria Vasquez of the Terran Federation. Welcome to Earth." Z. Rixtel performed the traditional Veloran greeting, touching two of his eyes in respect. "Madam President, I thank you for receiving us. I come to offer apologies for the attack on your colony and to seek better understanding between our peoples." President Vasquez gestured toward a seating area where chairs had somehow appeared that perfectly accommodated Veloran anatomy. "Please, sit. Let us talk. I imagine you have many questions." They sat, and for a moment there was silence. Zerixtel decided to address the matter directly. "Madam President, I will be honest. The device we recovered from New Brisbane has puzzled our greatest minds. The attack on your colony was wrong, but it has revealed something that concerns the entire Galactic Union. Your technology appears to be far beyond what we expected. The Union wishes to understand how this is possible." The President smiled. It was a patient smile, like a teacher preparing to explain something to a curious student. "Ambassador, may I ask you a question first?" "Of course." "How long has the Veloran hegemony existed as a spacefaring civilization?" Zerixtel thought for a moment. "Approximately 8,000 of your years." "And in that time, how many fundamental technological breakthroughs have your people achieved?" The question caught Zerixtel off guard. He thought about it carefully. "We have improved our faster-than-light drives several times. We developed better weapons and shields. Our medicine has advanced considerably. Perhaps 100 major advances." 100 breakthroughs in 8,000 years, the President said thoughtfully. "That averages to about one every 80 years. Would you say that rate is typical for members of the Galactic Union?" Zerixtel nodded slowly. "Yes, that seems accurate. Some species advance slightly faster, others slower, but the general pace is similar." The President leaned forward. "In the 200 years since we achieved interstellar travel, humans have made approximately 4,000 fundamental technological breakthroughs." Zerixtel felt his skin change color involuntarily. "That is not possible." "And yet, here we are." The President gestured around the command center. "Everything you see here would have been considered fantasy to humans just 100 years ago, not because we lacked the basic knowledge, but because we had not yet learned to combine what we knew in the right ways." "I do not understand," Zerixtel admitted. The President stood and walked to a nearby display. With a wave of her hand, she brought up images of human history. "Ambassador, when we first made contact with the Galactic Union 50 years ago, your observers made certain assumptions about us. They saw that our fastest ships could barely reach a fraction of light speed. They saw that our weapons were crude kinetic projectiles and basic energy beams. They saw that our computer systems were slow and limited." "Yes," Zerixtel agreed. That is what our reports indicated. What your observers did not understand, the president continued, is that humans think differently than other species in the galaxy. We do not approach technology as a series of individual problems to be solved. We see everything as connected. Every discovery leads to 10 more. Every breakthrough opens 100 new possibilities. She changed the display to show a diagram of interconnected nodes. Your species, like most in the Union, develops technology in a linear fashion. You perfect one system before moving to the next. You build on what works and discard what does not. It is logical. It is efficient. It is also limiting. Zerixtel studied the diagram. He could see what she meant. Veloran technological development did follow a straight line, with each advance building directly on the one before it. Humans, the president said, develop technology in a web. We work on everything simultaneously. A breakthrough in one field immediately affects all other fields. Our medical researchers talk to our weapons designers. Our artists collaborate with our engineers. Our philosophers debate with our physicists. Nothing is separate. Everything influences everything else. She pointed to the center of the web diagram. This approach means that sometimes our development seems chaotic. We pursue ideas that appear useless. We waste resources on projects that fail. But occasionally we combine things in ways that no one expected. And when that happens, you leap ahead, Zerixtel finished. Exactly. The president returned to her seat. The device you recovered from New Brisbane is a defensive screen generator. It protects a small area from incoming weapons fire. Your scientists could not understand it because it uses principles from 17 different fields of study, combined in ways that would never occur to a species that develops technology linearly. Zerixtel's aide, Trix, spoke up for the first time. But how do you coordinate such development? How do you ensure that information reaches the right people? The president smiled again. We learned long ago that the best ideas come from unexpected places. We do not try to control the flow of information. We simply make sure that everyone has access to everything. Any human anywhere in our territory can access any research, any design, any idea. The only secrets we keep are those necessary for survival. Zerixtel felt his understanding of humans fundamentally shifting. For 50 years, the Galactic Union had dismissed them as a young species, still learning the basics of interstellar civilization. Now he realized that they had been watching humans without truly seeing them. The attack on New Brisbane, Zerixtel said slowly, 47 warships destroyed in minutes. Was that the work of your defensive screens? The president shook her head. No, Ambassador, that was something else entirely, something we developed only recently. What was it? The president was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was serious. The fleet that attacked New Brisbane was not destroyed by weapons in any traditional sense. We simply moved them. Moved them where? Into the sun. Zerixtel felt cold despite the comfortable temperature of the room. You moved 47 warships into a star. Yes, we know this requires more energy than your civilization has generated in its entire history. But for us, energy is no longer a limiting factor. We solved that problem 30 years ago. Zerixtel looked at his security officers. They appeared ready to flee. He understood the impulse but held his ground. Madam President, he said carefully, you have just told me that your species possesses power beyond anything the Galactic Union has ever encountered. Why are you sharing this information with me? The president's expression softened. Because we do not want to be feared, Ambassador. We want to be understood. The attack on New Brisbane forced us to reveal capabilities we had hoped to keep hidden. Now we must decide how to move forward. We can either become the enemy of every species in the galaxy, or we can become something else. What do you wish to become? Partners, the president said simply. Teachers, students. We have learned much on our own, but there is still so much we do not know. The Union has 10,000 years of history that we have barely begun to study. We want to share what we know, and we want to learn from you in return. Zrixtal sat in silence, processing everything he had heard. The diplomatic situation had become far more complex than he had anticipated. "I will need to consult with the Grand Council," he finally said. "This decision is not mine to make alone." The president nodded. "Of course, take whatever time you need. In the meantime, would you like a tour of our research facilities? I think seeing human engineering firsthand might help the council understand our proposal." Zrixtal agreed, though he was not certain he was ready for what he would see. The tour of human research facilities lasted 3 days. Each hour brought new revelations that challenged Zrixtal's understanding of what was possible. The first stop was the Medical Research Center on the far side of Unity Station. The facility was run by a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Sarah Kim. "Ambassador," she said as they walked through clean white corridors, "human medicine has always been driven by a simple goal: the elimination of suffering. When we first left Earth, our average lifespan was about 80 years. Now it is closer to 300. Zrixtal nodded. Veloran lifespans were naturally longer, reaching 500 years without medical intervention. The human achievement was impressive but not exceptional. Dr. Kim seemed to read his thoughts. "What matters is not the numbers, but how we achieved them. We rewrote the fundamental processes of human biology. Every cell in a human body is now capable of repairing itself indefinitely. Disease has become a historical curiosity. Death from natural causes is now optional." "Optional?" Zrixtal asked. "Yes, any human who wishes to can now live essentially forever. Most choose to eventually end their lives when they feel they have experienced enough. But it is their choice, not nature's." The implications were staggering. Immortality had been a dream of species throughout the galaxy for as long as records existed. Many had achieved extended lifespans, but none had truly conquered death. "How?" was all Zrixtal could ask. Dr. Kim led them to a laboratory where a human patient lay on a table surrounded by soft light. "We developed what we call the restoration system. It uses targeted quantum fields to reset cellular damage at the molecular level. But the truly revolutionary aspect is that it works in real time. The system is now part of every human's biology from birth." Zrixtal watched as the light around the patient pulsed gently. There were no machines, no visible technology of any kind. "The light is not the system," Dr. Kim explained. "The actual restoration happens at scales too small to see. Every cell in that patient's body contains nanoscale devices that constantly repair and optimize biological functions." "Nanotechnology is not unknown to us," Zrixtal said. "The Septari have experimented with it for centuries." "Yes, but Septari nanotechnology is mechanical, tiny machines that perform specific tasks. Our system is different. It is organic. The restoration devices grow naturally within human cells. They are passed from parent to child. They evolve and improve themselves." "Self-improving nanotechnology," Trix whispered. "That is supposed to be impossible." "Was a concern we spent 50 years solving," Dr. Kim agreed. "The devices are constrained by fundamental physical laws we discovered. They cannot grow beyond certain sizes. They cannot perform functions outside their programming. They are perfectly safe." The next stop on the tour was the Advanced Physics Laboratory, located deep within Earth's moon. They traveled there through a transport system that seemed to fold space around them. One moment they were on Unity Station. The next, they were standing in a facility carved from lunar rock. The laboratory director was an elderly man named Professor Takeshi Yamamoto. Despite his obvious age, he moved with energy and enthusiasm. "Ambassador," he called out as they arrived, "welcome to where the real magic happens." He led them to a vast chamber filled with equipment that Rixtel could not begin to identify. In the center, suspended in what appeared to be empty air, was a sphere of darkness. Not shadow, not the absence of light. True darkness so complete that looking at it hurt. "What is that?" Rixtel asked, unable to look away despite the discomfort. "We call it a singularity generator," Professor Yamamoto said proudly. "It creates a controlled black hole about the size of an atom, which we use as a power source. This facility generates more energy than your entire hegemony uses in a year." Rixtel stepped back involuntarily. A black hole on an inhabited moon. The professor laughed. "The singularity is perfectly contained. It cannot escape. It cannot grow. It simply converts matter into energy with near-perfect efficiency. We have been running this facility for 20 years without incident." "But the calculations required to contain such a thing," Trix said, "are handled by our computational systems," the professor finished. "Which brings me to another topic your council might find interesting. Do you know how our computers work?" Rixtel shook his head. "We do not use computers in the traditional sense anymore. 20 years ago, we developed what we call quantum consciousness networks. Instead of machines that process information, we have artificial minds that think." He gestured, and the air before them filled with light. Shapes formed, patterns of incredible complexity that shifted and flowed like living things. "This is a visualization of our primary network. It contains approximately 10 billion individual consciousness nodes, each one capable of independent thought. Together, they form a collective intelligence that helps us solve problems beyond the capability of any single mind. Artificial intelligence is forbidden by the Galactic Compact," Rixtel said, remembering the ancient laws. "After the machine wars of the Third Era." "Yes, we studied that history," the professor nodded. "The machine wars happened because your ancestors created intelligences that viewed biological life as a competitor. They made the mistake of designing minds that thought like machines, cold, logical, without empathy." He gestured again, and the visualization changed to show something that looked almost organic. "Our consciousness networks are different. They were designed from the beginning to value life, to feel connection with humans and each other. They are not our servants or our tools. They are our partners. They help us because they want to, not because they are programmed to obey." Rixtel felt like the ground beneath his feet was shifting. Everything the humans were showing him challenged fundamental assumptions that had guided galactic civilization for millennia. "I must ask," Rixtel said carefully, "do you share this technology with all humans? Is there no control?" The professor's expression became serious. "Every human has access to these technologies. Every citizen can contribute ideas, propose improvements, raise concerns. There is no elite class that hoards knowledge." "But surely that creates chaos. How do you prevent misuse?" "Through culture, not control," President Vasquez said. She had been quiet throughout the tour, allowing others to explain. Now she stepped forward. "From the moment a human is born, they are taught that knowledge carries responsibility. They learn that their actions affect everyone. They understand that power without wisdom leads to destruction." "Every human?" Rixtel asked skeptically. "There are no criminals, no rebels." "There are those who disagree with specific policies," the president admitted. "There are debates, arguments, even conflicts, but the fundamental principles are accepted by all. Those who would use power destructively are identified early, helped to understand why such behavior is harmful." The final stop on the tour was Earth itself. They descended to the surface in a shuttle that moved through the atmosphere without any sense of friction or heat. The view from the windows showed a planet transformed. Vast cities floated above the clouds, connected by bridges of light. Forests covered lands that had once been deserts. Oceans teemed with life, their waters clean and clear. Mountains had been reshaped into forms that seemed to defy gravity. "We call it the Garden World Project," the president explained. "When humans first left Earth, our homeworld was damaged, polluted, struggling to support life. Now it is healthier than it has been in millions of years. Every wound we caused has been healed. Every species we drove to extinction has been restored." The shuttle landed in a garden filled with flowers that Rixtel did not recognize. Children played nearby, their laughter carrying on the wind. "This is our true achievement," the president said softly. "Not the technology, not the power. This, a world where every being can live without fear, where every child can grow up knowing they are valued." Rixtel watched the children play. He thought about Veloran children, raised from birth to understand their place in a rigid social order. He wondered which approach was truly better. "I will speak to the council," he said at last. "I will tell them what I have seen. I will recommend that we accept your offer of partnership, but I cannot guarantee they will listen." The president smiled, and there was both hope and sadness in her expression. "That is all we can ask, Ambassador, that they listen, that they consider, that they choose not out of fear but out of wisdom." The Grand Council convened in emergency session 3 days after Rixtel returned from Earth. The chamber was fuller than it had been in centuries. Representatives from all 12 member species were present, along with observers from dozens of minor civilizations. Rixtel stood at the central podium, the same place where he had first presented the mysterious human device. Now he carried something far more significant, knowledge that could reshape the galaxy. "Honored representatives," he began, "I come before you with a report that will challenge everything you believe about our place in the universe." He activated the display systems, and images from his tour filled the chamber. The council watched in silence as he showed them Unity Station, the medical facilities, the physics laboratory, the transformed surface of Earth. When he finished, High Minister Cronax of the Septari Collective rose to speak. "Ambassador, what you show us is impressive, but it does not change the fundamental reality. The Terrans possess technology that we cannot match. They have the power to destroy any of our civilizations at will. How can we trust that their peaceful intentions will remain so?" "With respect, High Minister," Rixtel replied, "we are already dependent on their goodwill. The attack on New Brisbane proved that our combined military strength is meaningless against their capabilities. The only question is how we respond to this reality." "We could ally against them," Cronax suggested. "All 12 species working together could surely find a way to counter their power." "I considered that possibility. During my visit, I asked indirect questions about human defensive capabilities. What I learned was humbling. They are aware of every fleet movement in the galaxy. They have monitored our communications for decades. They know every weapon system we possess. If we attempted to attack them, they would know our plans before we finalized them." The chamber erupted in angry murmurs. "This is intolerable," shouted Representative Gaxner of the Militant Purity League. "These creatures have violated every principle of the Galactic Compact. We must respond with force." "And what cost would you accept, Representative?" Rixtel asked calmly. "The complete destruction of your species. They can move your entire fleet into your sun in seconds. They can shut down every machine in your territory with a thought. They can end your civilization while you sleep." "You sound like a defeated coward," Gaxner sneered. "I am not defeated. I am realistic. The humans do not want war. They do not want dominance. They want partnership, and I believe we should give them what they want." Elder Zahn raised his hand for calm. "Ambassador Rixtel, you speak of partnership. What exactly do the humans propose?" "They offer to share their technology freely with any species that wishes to receive it. All of it. The medical advances that have ended death. The energy systems that make scarcity obsolete. The manufacturing techniques that can create anything from base matter. Everything." Freely, Elder Zahn asked. What do they want in return? Only that we approach the knowledge responsibly. They ask that each species commit to using their gifts for the benefit of all life, not for conquest or destruction. And if a species misuses their gifts? Rixtel paused. They will remove access to the technology. They have the ability to shut down any device they provide, anywhere in the galaxy, instantly. They maintain oversight. Oversight, Chronex repeated with contempt. You mean control. They want to be our masters. No, I am recommending that we accept reality. They are asking to be our teachers. There is a difference. A master seeks to control. A teacher seeks to elevate. Everything I saw on Earth suggests that humanity genuinely wants to help us grow. They could have conquered us already if domination was their goal. The debate continued for many hours. Finally, Elder Zahn called for a vote. The question was simple. Should the Galactic Union accept the Terran offer of partnership? The vote was close. 6 species voted in favor, 4 voted against, 2 abstained. By the rules of the Council, the motion passed, but barely. Rixtel felt relief wash over him. The decision was made. Now the real work would begin. In the weeks that followed, human representatives arrived at the council chambers to begin negotiations. They were patient, friendly, willing to answer any question and address any concern. They demonstrated technologies that left the council members speechless. Slowly, trust began to build. The first exchanges of knowledge took place. Veloran scientists worked alongside human engineers to understand quantum consciousness networks. Septari doctors learned the foundations of restoration technology. Christine architects studied human matter manipulation techniques. And everywhere there were surprises. Human technology was not simply more advanced than what the Union possessed. It was fundamentally different, based on principles that had never occurred to galactic scientists. Things that had been deemed impossible were revealed to be merely unexplored. 6 months after the council vote, Rixtel received an invitation from President Vasquez. She asked him to return to Earth, to witness something she called the first step. He traveled once again to the Terran homeworld. Unity Station was even busier than before, filled with representatives from dozens of species, all there to learn and share. The president met him personally at the dock. She looked older than he remembered. The strain of leading humanity through this critical period was evident on her face. Ambassador, thank you for coming. There is something I want you to see. She led him to a new facility that had not existed during his previous visit. It was a massive dome, transparent, showing the stars clearly above. Inside, gathered in a vast open space, were thousands of beings. Humans, Veloran, Septari, Christine, Tikari, and representatives of every species in the galaxy. What is this? Rixtel asked. This is the Academy, the first truly galactic institution of learning. Here, beings from every species will study together, work together, and discover together. No secrets, no restrictions, no separation, just minds from across the stars, united in the pursuit of knowledge. Rixtel looked out at the crowd. He saw young Veloran sitting beside elderly Septari, discussing problems on holographic displays. He saw humans teaching Tikari, children, the basics of quantum mechanics. He saw Christine artists collaborating with engineers of every species. You dreamed of this, he said quietly. We all did, the president replied. Every species, somewhere in their history, dreamed of a united galaxy. We have simply taken the first step toward making that dream real. There will be challenges, Rixtel warned. Old fears do not disappear overnight. We know we expect difficulties. Change is never easy, but look at them, Ambassador. Young minds free from the prejudices of their elders, discovering that they have more in common than they ever imagined. This is how the future is built, one connection at a time, one friendship at a time. Rixtel watched a group of students, mixed species, laughing together as they worked on some project he could not identify. They seemed so natural together. Perhaps, he thought, humanity's greatest technology was not their ships or their weapons or their medicine. Perhaps it was their vision, their ability to see what could be rather than what was. "Madam President," he said finally, "I believe I owe you an apology. When I first came to Earth, I expected to find threats. Instead, I found hope. My species and the entire Union misjudged humanity badly." The President smiled. "There is nothing to apologize for, Ambassador. You were cautious because your experience taught you caution. That is wisdom. But now you have new experience and new wisdom comes from it. That is growth. That is what we all seek." A young human approached them, a girl no more than 10 years old. She was leading a Veloran child of similar age, the two of them chattering excitedly. "Grandma," the girl called out, "we figured out the problem with our project. Zaltak suggested revering the polarity and it worked." The President laughed and knelt to embrace both children. "That is wonderful, Lily. And well done, Zaltak. I knew you two would make a great team." The children ran off, already planning their next experiment. Zerixtal watched them go, feeling something he had not felt in centuries, genuine optimism for the future. "The next generation," the President said, standing again. "They will not remember the old divisions. They will not carry the old fears. For them, a united galaxy will be simply the way things are, and they will build wonders that even we cannot imagine." Zerixtal looked up at the stars visible through the transparent dome. Somewhere out there, his homeworld continued its ancient traditions, resisting change. But here, on this small blue planet, a new tradition was being born, a tradition of hope, a tradition of unity. "I believe," he said slowly, "that I would like to stay here for a while, to learn, to teach, to be part of what you are building." The President's smile widened. "We would be honored, Ambassador. Welcome to the future." And together they walked into the Academy, joining the thousands of minds already working to reshape the galaxy. It would not be easy. It would not be quick. But for the first time in 10,000 years of galactic history, it was possible. The stars above continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small beings gathered beneath them. But those beings were no longer content to simply watch. They had learned that the universe was not a place to be feared or conquered, but a place to be understood and shaped. The Terran engineers had indeed built technology beyond alien comprehension, but their greatest achievement was not any machine or device. It was the idea that all species, working together, could transcend the limitations that had bound them for millennia. That was the true breakthrough. That was the gift they offered to the galaxy. And the galaxy, slowly, was learning to accept it.